please call the roll.
Kelly,
Here.
Bishop, Brancatelli,
Here.
Cleveland,
Here.
Conwell, Griffin, Hairston,
Of the whole, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Gil, Johnson,
Here.
Bashir Jones,
Here.
Joe Jones, Hazy,
Present.
McCormick,
Present.
Mooney,
Here.
Polinsik, Santana, Zone.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. This committee hearing is being held during the COVID-19 emergency declaration and is being conducted as a virtual meeting in accordance with Ohio's open meetings laws as amended by Sub-House Bill 197. In compliance with the charter and the rules of council, a copy of all legislation being heard during this meeting was furnished previous to the meeting to every council member through their council email. It is hereby acknowledged without objection that all members of council have received this legislation. Further, council members must be visibly present for all votes. If you are not visibly present, your vote will not be counted. Thank you. Looking at the agenda for the day for members of the administration that are watching for your planning purposes, we are going to begin with community development. We're going to have a human resources piece. We have two pieces for planning, then we're going to port control, and then there's two council pieces that we're in here at the end. So that's kind of for your planning purposes.
Right.
Okay, everybody could mute if you're not talking. And we're going to begin with community development. And sorry, papers there. Okay, ordinance number 597, 2020, as amended, council members Griffin, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Community Development to enter into an agreement with CHN Housing Capital to provide grants and forgivable and non-forgivable loans to property owners to administer interim controls to make their residences lead safe for a period of 5 years. Director Maness, are you with us?
Director Maness is on vacation this week. I was told that Director Donald would be presenting on behalf of the administration.
Council President, I just talked to Director Director Donald. They're in cabinet. They thought they were supposed to go towards the end, but they're joining us now.
Okay, should I move? I can move to human resources if
Go to human resources and then they'll be here.
We could also have, we have Director Nowak and others on if they want to give a brief explanation.
I'd like to start with the administration's position and then go to them. Is Director West on the call? Okay, see Freddie, so we're gonna go right to planning. So that's what you get for being here. So we're gonna skip down to planning, and I have two ordinances for planning. Get to them. Kevin, to begin with, it's Resolution 505-2020, Councilmember Zone, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency resolution approving the continuation and expansion of the Gordon Square Arts District, Cleveland Improvement District as a special improvement district in the city, accepting petitions from owners of property in the district, approving a new plan for public services, declaring it necessary to provide maintenance, security, marketing, and other services for the district, and providing for the assessment of the cost of such work upon benefited property in the district and declaring an emergency. Director.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the continuation of the Gordon Square Arts District. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the purpose of the special improvement districts. It's designed to provide services that actually go beyond what city services exists. The burden of the fiduciary responsibility is on the businesses within the district boundary. This piece of legislation outlines the services that are provided and provides for the continuation of the district, and also approving a new plan for public services. These include maintenance, it includes security, it includes marketing and other services in the district. Councilman Zone has been very involved with the origination of this district. And I think many of you who have witnessed or have special improvement districts in your areas know and understand the benefits of this program.
Great. Thank you, Director. Councilman Zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of council. This is the third renewal of the district. Gordon Square Special Improvement District was the first in a neighborhood outside the Central Business District in the city of Cleveland. And with this approval, we are actually expanding the district boundaries. We've held an in-person meeting pre-COVID. We've done a virtual meeting post-COVID or in current COVID now. And the business community is really excited about it. And I ask my colleagues to support this piece of legislation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments on ordinance number 505, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 505, 2020 stands approved. We're now going to move to ordinance number 506, 2020. Councilmembers Brancatelli and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of City Planning to enter into an amendment to contract number PS 2019-138 with Code Studio Inc. to extend the term of the contract up to 1 year and to add additional services for form-based zoning pilot initiative. Director?
Thank you. Many of you are familiar with the form-based zoning initiative that we've undertaken, starting out in the Detroit Shoreway community, focusing on the Opportunity Corridor area, and also the Huff community. This request is basically adding $29,000 to the amount of the contract and extending that contract. The rationale behind this is that due to COVID-19, as we were in the middle of the process, quite a few adjustments had to be made, like many of our projects. We are asking for a year-long extension. We do not believe that we may need that whole time, but we wanted to be play it safe, for lack of a better word. We have completed working in the Detroit Shoreway neighborhood. We've also completed some of the analysis that we're going to be doing for the Opportunity Corridor District with Councilman Griffin. Councilman Griffin and Zone have been engaged in this process. We are going to be working with Councilman Bashir Jones in the Huff community. These three areas will serve as pilot communities for this new form of zoning. I also have Kyle Reese, who's my project manager, on the line to talk to you a little bit about the process changes and just to give you an update on sort of where things are. So Kyle, if you want to hop on.
Sure. Thank you, Director. So the changes that are being requested are partly due to some adjustments in the budget. Councilman Zone has graciously added some of his casino dollar funds to expand the geography for the Detroit Shoreway neighborhood. So that's the majority of the extra dollars that are being requested. The expansion in time is really to make sure that our engagement process in the Huff neighborhood is as robust as possible. I think we all understand the circumstances we're in, and given that, we had to go back and reassess how we're going to do community engagement there. In my opinion, I think that what we're going to end up with in that neighborhood is going to be a much more robust community engagement process than we would have maybe had the first time around. So I think we're excited about that. That process will be beginning in October and going through probably January of 2021. And after that, we'll be really into the code writing section of the process and hopefully have something to bring back to a full council in Q2 of next year.
Great, thank you. Councilman Tony Brancatelli, Chair of the Development Planning Sustainability. Do you have comments on 506-2020?
I fully support. This is a great opportunity to expand on what has been a remarkable district and has added a lot of value to that community.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Zone, did you want to comment on ordinance number 506-2020?
Fully supported, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I just want to take a point of personal privilege to tell Director Kyle, your staff is amazing. The consultants you hired, but the level of detail that your staff did, particularly Kyle Reese, the neighborhood planners, Avin Davenport in my service area, their outreach was extensive. Granted, this was pre-COVID, but their thought and their time and effort that they put in evening hours was commendable. And I just wanted you to personally know that, Director. Really pleased with your staff and how they engaged our community on this effort. And I ask my colleagues to continue supporting this wonderful program.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Are there any further questions or comments on ordinance number 506-2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 506-2020 stands approved. Thank you very much, Kyle, Freddie, everybody who's here for that piece.
Thank you.
Is anybody here from HR? So it's a collective bargaining piece we could probably dispose of quickly. Nobody?
Gina Fountain's here from HR, Mr. Chairman.
Gina's here. Gina, you need to unmute, please.
Wait, I'm looking at my grid and she's not.
Okay, can you hear me now, Mr. President?
Oh, yes. Okay, there we go. Now we go.
Okay, good morning. The Department of, go ahead.
Quick second. Ordinance number 649-2020, Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 507 and to amend section 16 of ordinance number 523-15 passed March 30th, 2015 as amended relating to compensation of various classifications. This ordinance is being requested to be passed under suspension. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Mr. President and members of council. The Department of Human Resources is requesting approval of the Teamsters Local 507. These are full-time and seasonal employees. The majority of these employees are in public works. However, there are employees that are in DPU, port control, and safety. They have agreed to the pattern wages of 2, 2, and 2, and we are asking approval.
Thank you. So this is similar to pretty much all the locals that we've seen so far in terms of the pattern increase of 222. Everybody can look on there. I won't go through all of the changes. There were some small changes made to the minimum maximum wages for the various classifications of local 507, but nothing that really jumps out as anything. I don't think there's anything that's more than $1 that I've seen. Anything else we need to know about this ordinance, Gina?
Nope, that's it.
Questions, comments on ordinance number 649-2020? If there are no questions and no comments, ordinance number 649-2020 will be considered by the full council later this morning or afternoon. Thank you. Okay, is Director Donald with us?
Good morning.
Oh, okay. Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you, Councilman?
I am well, thank you. What I would like to do is just before we do that, I want to just ask if any council members have objection to walking an ordinance on, and it's ordinance number 545-2020. It's been introduced. It's been through planning. It's been approved by planning. And it just didn't get back to us in time to make the calendar, but there's some time sensitivity. And Councilmember Zone asked it to be heard. It's essentially a land swap from what I understand. Is that correct, Councilman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner Jamie DeRosa, who handles our real estate section for the administration, is on the call as well.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, I don't have the printout of that just yet. It's going to be brought to me. We'll do that. I just want to make sure there's no objection. We'll go to community development. But if Mr. Drossik can hang, we will hear that today with objection by members of the body, which nobody's raising their hands or texting me. So we have between now and when we're done with this piece to let me know if you have any objection to us hearing 5/49/2020 as a walk-on. Okay. Okay, with that, we're going to revert back to community development. I'm going to read it again for those that may have just joined us. It's ordinance number 597, 2020 as amended by council members Griffin, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Community Development to enter into an agreement with CHN Housing Capital to provide grants and forgivable and non-forgivable loans to property owners to administer interim controls to make their residents lead safe for a period of 5 years. Director Donald, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Council President, Councilman. Please, I am standing in for Director, Director Maness today, as well as Chief Walker Minor is here as well. It has been quite some time since myself, the Lead Safe Coalition, Community Development, et cetera, has provided this body with an update. We wanted to take this as an opportunity to provide everyone with just a general overview of an update of what the coalition has been doing, how we're staying on track through this pandemic, as it is very important, of course, that we do stay on track with the work that we're doing to make all rental properties in Cleveland lead safe, as children are at home even more during this quarantine period, and with school rolling out remotely. It's just very important that we relay to you and the public how much we are marching forward with our task and with our orders to make sure that Cleveland is lead safe. I believe there is a PowerPoint presentation that should have been forwarded to everyone, all of the council members. And I will move through some slides, and I'm not sure how it will be shown here, if at all.
If we could share the screen with Director Blue Donald, that would be appreciated. And if we can make it work, we'll make it work. Otherwise, just continue.
I will, absolutely.
Did that presentation get sent? Do we know?
Yes, Emily Lungard did pass that on to Ann Till, I believe, and she has it. So if she is on the line as well, she can share that, or we can.
It was given to Vikita yesterday.
Yeah. Okay, if we don't have the ability to share it, it's okay. We can just kind of talk.
No problem.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right.
And so I'll just, next slide, please. So first, I'll just give an update regarding building and housing and where we are, the milestones, the things that we have been working on the past couple of months. So the one overarching thing that is very important for us is the lead safe auditor. We feel that the lead safe auditor, as everyone can recall, it is codified. It is part of the lead safe legislation for us to have a lead safe auditor, essentially a neutral party, an outside third party that will undergo the task of making sure that there are no unintended consequences with the lead certification process, not only what building and housing is doing, but also some factors that the Lead Safe Coalition is doing, making sure that we're on track with workforce development and how loans and grants are going, just several things that we feel that is important to track. So that contract has been given to us by law. It should be floating around between us and Case Western Reserve University Poverty Center to sign. So in the next couple of weeks, the Lead Safe Auditor contract should be signed. As far as hiring our staff, it's very important that to recognize that the administration has allowed us to continue with hiring all of the staff that we were approved for 6 months, 8 months or so ago. We are in the process, our project manager who will oversee not only the lead certification process and implementation, but also our rental registry process. Since that goes so much hand in hand, they're all landlords, the same group of people. That person will start next Monday. We're also hiring a business process analyst, and that person's start date is being worked out, but hopefully we'll have that person started within the next 2 weeks. For boards and commissions, keep in mind there are 3 boards and or commissions that are prescribed by the ordinance. We plan on because of the pandemic, of course, we had delayed the seating of those. So we will be making our recommendations to the mayor and working with council, because on one of those boards, the Lead Safe Advisory Board, there is a choice essentially that council will get to make. As far as monitoring the impact of COVID-19 on property owners, we have a really, and the work that we're doing with landlords as we are tracking landlords and how they're registering for the rental registry, and now that evictions have started back up, we're really paying attention to that. And the work that we are doing, we had delayed our second mailing of our invoices. Generally, that would have happened in June-ish. It is happening this week. We're also delayed or did not turn on our late fees for this year's rental registry just because of the financial impact that we understand property owners may be undergoing. As we continue to move forward with the Lead Safe certification implementation, of course, we will, the Lead Safe Coalition will, but mainly the Lead Safe auditor will also be looking at major factors and seeing how COVID-19 may be affecting property owners in a variety of different ways, and if there's anything that we may need to adjust as far as implementation goes. Next slide, please. The next slide shows you a graphic, and I believe this is probably the first time that some of you have seen it, not the first time I presented it, is the zip code groupings rollout for the lead certification. Keep in mind there are 8 different quarters that the lead certification will have starting March 1st, 2021 and going through March of 2023. So with that, we have essentially grouped the zip codes in groupings of about 12,500 units per grouping. We took into consideration a variety of different things, and this was went through the Lead Safe Coalition. I asked for feedback regarding this information, but essentially we're looking at a couple of different factors. We didn't want to just group all of the essentially hotspot zip codes at the beginning of the stage. Our process, the rollout process. We didn't want to group them all at the end of the process because, of course, the other consideration is I have to make sure that the field are trained, the people in the field, the technicians, the inspectors, et cetera, are able to keep up with the work that is going on. We also factored in different zip codes if the groupings of rental properties were like one building with 400 units versus 400 separate units, because there's different considerations there with the amount of work that will need to be done. And also looking at the remediation, making sure that our zip code groupings were in such a way that our partners, EHW and CHM, with the loans and grants could keep up. So there may be some areas that we may have more loans and grants, a need for more loans and grants, while others are not. So we didn't want to strain the system all at once at the same time. So we tried to pace it out so that all of the whole system could work together. Next slide. I will now turn it over to Chief Walker Minor that will share some words regarding the city's $5 million investment.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you with this request to really discuss the $5 million that has been allocated for the Lead Safe Home Fund. As you all may recall, it was the 2019 transfer ordinance that we are using as the source to support this initiative, the Lead Safe Home Fund. Through an RFP process, CHN was selected. CHN Housing Capital was selected to manage for us this program. With these funds, grants, loans, and incentives will be targeted at families to use these funds to make sure that their homes are being remediated. Not more than 10% of the funds will be used for administrative. So I think that that is good news for us because the overwhelming majority of the funds will be invested into homes for interim controls. This went through an authorization process with our Housing Advisory Board on July 13th, 2020, and we have this in place for a 5-year period. So I'll take any questions that you may have at this time. I will also state that CHN has been in the business of doing this type of work, homes, loans, grants, incentives for quite some time. So we're quite confident in their capability. They know our customer, they know our community. And right now, I just share with you this information about this $5 million investment. Are there any questions?
Okay, so before we were to go to questions, I see there's a number of guests. Is there any guests that you want to seek any comments from before we go to questions from our colleagues?
Sure. I see Mark on the line, Mark McDermott from Enterprise. I also see Kevin Nowak on the line from CHN. Would you like to add to what I've indicated for this $5 million investment?
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark McDermott with Enterprise Community Partners. We had additional slides, if we may, that I was going to present a few and then was going to hand it off to Environmental Health Watch and CHN Housing Partners to give you and members of council more detail on the implementation going forward.
Okay, if we could share the screen with Ms. McDermott, please. Or whatever the term is, to give him permission to do that.
Actually, we can just go back right to the slide presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Or can we? Okay, yeah, okay, there we go.
Yeah, and we're essentially on the next slide, which is slide 5.
Okay.
Thank you. That's perfect. So thank you so much for Council's transformational leadership on lead poisoning prevention efforts and for the consideration of this investment. I would like to recognize, as I said, a few other coalition leadership members: Augie Napoli from United Way, Dan Cohn from the Mount Sinai Foundation, Rob Fisher from the Mandel Center on Poverty at Case Western Reserve, and then you'll hear from leadership from both Environmental Health Watch and CHN Housing Partners. I just want to also appreciate that we have an 18-member steering committee, as council may remember, with city representation of two members on that steering committee, and over 8 active committees that have been working on behalf of the coalition. Thank you to the building and.
Second, if I can interrupt you for one quick second, just looking at the at our guests, I just wanted to thank you and just let you know how sincerely I appreciate all the work of the coalition. Had I known everybody was going to be here, I probably would have scheduled for a separate hearing. So I would just ask people to be efficient because we've got more on the calendar. But please understand that we absolutely appreciate everything that you brought to the table with this initiative.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to be super efficient with those instructions. Thank you. Let's go on to the next slide, which folks can, I believe members can reference. Thank you very much, which is just the areas of focus for the coalition in 2020. We can move on to the next slide, actually. And this is just an updated version of what council members have seen around the structure of the Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition. I'll note quickly that there are 4 new committees started last year: Lead Safe Childcare Settings, Screening and Testing Committee, an Educational Interventions Committee that's working closely with CMSD, and our Research and Evaluation Committee. Next slide, please. This next slide just summarizes a recent report that came out of the Mandel School on the downstream consequences of childhood lead poisoning. I'll let you just look at those findings, scientific findings about the real impact, not just of children across the country, but of children in Cleveland. And I'll also note that these findings are disproportionate in the Black community in Cleveland. And we will make sure that a full copy of that report gets to all members of the council if it hasn't already. Next slide, please. My last update, and there's 2 slides on this one, is really on the Lead Safe Home Fund. And it is the fund that we are raising money for, that we are on target in terms of raising money for, to do 2 things: to set up a Lead Safe Resource Center and to set up the Lead Safe Home Loans and Grants Fund. You will hear much more detail about that from Environmental Health Watch and CHN. Next slide, please. This is my last slide before I hand it off to Kim. And this is just to give you a sense of the dollars that have been raised in the first 9 months toward a 5-year, $99 million goal. We're already, in fact, over $20 million. It says nearly, but update over $20 million in funds. And that we have working hard on prospects in addition to this list within the banking community, within the nonprofit lending community, within the corporate community, and other sectors of the community. And we are confident that we are going to hit within the 5-year period that $99 million goal. I'm going to hand it off at this point in time to Kim with the Environmental Health Watch. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Kim?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm gonna just say that Environmental Health Watch, we've been around for 40 years. I've been doing this work for over 20 years, and I'm a risk assessor and have a lot of technical expertise that has helped to inform this process. And being selected to be the administrator for the Resource Center, we can implement a lot of ideas and new ways of doing business. So what's great about the opportunities that we moved our locations, and we're right now in Midtown to service the residents in City of Cleveland. So we're centrally located. We're on the 3rd floor of a building at 4600 Euclid, and we have plenty of space for training, for social distancing, as well, parking and workforce space. So we actually have a hands-on space directly across the street for a workforce development program, and our administrative offices. I really would like to invite anyone on this call, city council members, to come and join us or visit us at some time. So we are on track, even through COVID. Unfortunately, we're having this pandemic, but we were still able to set up this infrastructure, set up our offices, hire our staff. We are in phase 3 of a phase 4 training process. And we are right now integrating our data management system with our call center. And so we are pretty much done with all of our IT and infrastructure needs. We did start operating for workforce, but we are set up in getting prepared for the launch. So we have our team. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. You'll hear from Chantal in a second. But what's important about our team is that they are experienced folks, right? People I've been working with for a while and a long time. And so now I'm able to integrate them into this new system that we're developing. So Tracy Washington was formerly with Cleveland Tenants Organization. And it's important to note that Tracy is specifically hired to work directly with landlords for compliance assistance and tenants. I thought it was very important that we continue to use a consumer-friendly face, and that we have the right type of folks on staff dedicated to making sure that the landlords get the help they need. Robin Brown, who many of you know, is an impacted resident, and the call center is so important. Those folks will be the first folks that people talk to and get them to the right folks, and provide the right amount of resources for folks calling the call center. And then Fred Ward is our consultant, and we have coordinators and organizers on the ground that will be working in neighborhoods on a regular basis, day to day. And a lot of the folks that I'm talking about have worked with us, built their capacity over the last several years, and understand the issues because they're from the community. So it's also important to have folks that are there to build community, as well as give information and help organize on the ground. And so the next slide, I'll let Chantal talk a little bit about her role.
Thank you, Kim. So as she mentioned, my name is Chantal Tadamy, and I'm the program manager for the Let's Safe Resource Center. And I'm excited today to share with you more about the operations of the center. So the aim of the Let's Safe Resource Center is to provide a one-stop shop for lead poisoning in our community as a landing ground for the location of the Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition. As you can see on the slide, we'll provide lead safe certification navigation to streamline the certification process, community outreach and organizing to promote engagement and awareness with our Cleveland communities, resident and landlord education to build knowledge and understanding of lead poisoning and its effects, as well as workforce training to bolster the capacity of our Cleveland workforce to respond to and to address lead in our communities. Moving to the next slide, this will be a visual of the outline of the Lead Source Resource Center operations. So it has each entity of our team. So our core team, the purpose is to generate ideas and informations for the center. Our coordinators activate community member engagement in the process for achieving safety of lead in Cleveland. Our outreach, they disseminate information to community members on knowledge of lead safety. The call center navigates community members to the appropriate resources. Our educators, of course, educate the community on the effects of lead and the importance of lead safety. Our landlord-tenant liaison, as Kim mentioned, integrates our community members in the process of landlord-tenant interactions with policy and navigating to the associated loans and grants with CHN for lead safety in Cleveland. And finally, our workforce, the purpose there is to remediate lead-exposed community homes in Cleveland. So moving forward to the next slide. We're also excited to announce our communications campaign, The Faces of the Community. The purpose here is to promote sustainable change in Cleveland that comes from clear communications that are consistent and also coupled with active community engagement efforts. The campaign will feature our community members and community leaders who will tell the story of lead in our city. So the overview messages, as you can see on your screen, are that lead poisoning can affect anybody. Lead is our collective responsibility, as well as we all deserve and will work towards healthy homes together. You'll notice that the campaign will soon be visible across our community, along with access to our full website. Please progress to the next slide there as well, where you can see a visual of the homepage of the website, which is now our landing page at leadsafecle.org. The intention here with our website, of course, is to match everything that we've said thus far, clarity of messages that refer to their tools and resources, clear navigation to those tools and resources, as well as accessibility for everyone that is easy and manageable. And of course, we'll have the on-the-ground teams helping individuals in our community access all of this information and bring awareness and knowledge to that information. I'll now pass the floor back to Kim Foreman, and she'll overview a bit more on our workforce development component, the activity that has begun thus far.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kim, back to you.
Next slide. Yep. Next slide. So due to time, I will not review every component of our two-part training process, but we have an internal workforce system that we are piloting. We started the pilot last week. And so what I wanted to talk about is the intention behind this and understanding internal controls, making sure we have the appropriate capacity on the ground. And this is our first priority of the Resource Center. And so I wanted to share the vision is to really have a high quality and accountable workforce, and they create career paths, right? So there's two tiers to this. There's folks who actually work on properties, work on homes, right? They can enter the system, but they have to have a little bit of expertise around how to work and mitigate. But we also have the clearance folks and the folks that would be part of our system that could come in without any background, any skill. So this is kind of a pipeline approach, and we want to have create opportunities for people in communities, in neighborhoods. So it's a quick 2 to 3 week process, right? So they can come in, work with us, we can vet them, and then we can get them on our public list, and they can start working and get to work. And so across the spectrum, we have new trainees, new entrepreneurs, established businesses that might be looking to scale, and a priority is given to City of Cleveland residents and small businesses. So we don't want to overtrain. So we will be monitoring how many folks we train. Our call center is also tasked with doing follow-ups with our workforce. So we want to check in with folks, right? We want to monitor, we want to call the landlords after they've been serviced and make sure we get people working, but that we're not training too many folks and people are sitting at home. So it's a delicate balance between building capacity, but also making sure folks have opportunity to actually work. Next slide. So we can talk later if you have more questions about the specifics of the training. This is just showing you kind of the process and that we have a balance between an internal workspace that people do some hands-on training as well as field training, so that we can really see that folks know how to clean properly, that we could clear properly, and that our workforce has the ability to help landlords pass the clearance. And so we also want to have a group of advisors, part of the coalition, workforce advisors, people in the field, as well as supports for our workforce, so that they know that they can continue to work with our partners, build their capacity, financials, things that they may need to grow their business and to become entrepreneurs if they choose to. So right now we estimate, outside of the CHN home loans and grants, we know that some landlords will do their own work. We want to start with 50 construction professionals, 50 clearance professionals, 25 environmental cleaning professionals, if we could cultivate that. And we want to really try to train 100 folks through December 2020. Right now, like I said, we've already started rehab, renovation, and painting classes for contractors and landlords, and we'll continue that, as well as this two-part process. And Councilman Blaine Griffin has already attended one of our RRP classes, an 8-hour training. So we are operating and we are continuing to build that calendar for this two-part, as well as additional RRP classes. And we working with building and housing to target contractors and landlords that are registered. So we want to work closely with the city, with you, to get out in the communities with our outreach team and recruit, as well as work with our advisory board and recruit additional certified individuals. So right now, we'll pass this on to Kevin Nowak from CHN.
Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, members of council. I appreciate your time today. You know, and I would like to say first, thank you for the support that council has given to CHN as well as CHN Housing Capital as we've stood up that lending entity and really tried to fill the gaps within our community, really the equity gaps that we see for communities of color and low-income communities and the availability of capital. And part of this effort, when we think about Let's Save Cleveland, what we're looking to do is try to provide grants, loans, incentives to allow for people within the city of Cleveland to make their homes lead safe. And when we're thinking about the work that we're doing, it's also going to allow for us to build additional muscle and capacity and scale within the city of Cleveland as we think about broader healthy housing in the future and the importance of lead that we'll address today, but also this allows for us as a community to be in a position to in the future address the home repair needs of our community. We've worked closely with Environmental Health Watch throughout this process, and as we're thinking through the implementation of the Lead Safe Home Fund, it's important to note that we're creating this integrated structure where we will be using the same customer relationship management systems. We're in constant communication with each other to ensure that people that are coming in through the system, whether it be through the resource center or through CHN with the loans and grants, will have a positive and experience. What I wanted to introduce here on the call with me, one of the things that we've been doing is building out our team and making sure that we had the right team in place, as Kim has with Chantel. I just wanted to give a introduction for Matt Sattler from our team, who is the director of our lead services and will be leading our effort, Lead Safe Home loans and grants. So I want to say hello to Matt and introduce him to you. We know that loans, grants, and incentives are critical to the success, and they're critical to the success. And this funding is important, primarily because there are not products that are available to landlords within our community at scale to be able to address these needs. What we have done throughout this time since we've last spoken about this is to try to create and to finalize what those loans, grants, and incentive structures look like. If we can maybe go to slide 18, please. And one of the things I think some of you know, I have a banking background, is you need to understand your customer and understand who you're serving. So we've done a good level of landlord engagement. We've hosted individual meetings, small group sessions, and worked with property owners to understand their financial position and what would be the best way for us to craft this the loans and grants incentives. We've worked with within the Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition to understand kind of landlord typology that we have within the city of Cleveland. 60% of landlords within the city of Cleveland are small mom and pop landlords. So they're small scale, own a couple of units. And that's something that's important for us to be thinking about as we're thinking about the loans and grants and incentives we're bringing to the market. At our peak, we're building a system that would be able to complete 5,000 jobs a year and a total of 25,000 over our 5-year period. And in year one, we're targeting assisting approximately 2,000 landlords in this effort. And we plan to have that go up as we continue to fundraise and the system matures. And I just wanted to again, note that these loans, these products don't exist in the market. And as we're thinking through the dollars, as the city of Cleveland considers bringing the dollars in, when we look at the loans that are available and the dollars that the city could bring in as loans, that helps to actually improve the cost of the loans that will go to the landlords. Because there's a lower cost of capital with this coming in as a grant for this project. It also has significant leverage. So any dollars used within this pool as a loan loss reserve, it would have a 10 times leverage of those dollars. So, the money that the city is investing would end up leveraging the availability of private capital. Next slide, please. I won't go through this whole workflow, but we thought it was important for you to understand that we have been crafting this workflow. We've been doing it in a way that we think is responsive and allows for the greatest inclusion and thinks about different ways that we would be bringing people into the system. And we've been working closely with Kim and Chantel and the rest of the team at Environmental Health Watch to build this out. But really what this workflow essentially will show you is that someone enters the resource center or directly into CHN, what that process looks like. We've established customer service criteria, how we would work through this. We have a process that we've built out that really creates this closed loop where someone would come in, we'd be able to assess whether they go into the loans, grants, some combination of both. They're going to be able to work with contractors that have been reviewed and that have been approved to be part of this process, and really kind of creates this nice closed loop experience, which is similar to the work that we do otherwise in the city of Cleveland. We can skip down maybe to slide number, I believe it's 24. Yep, 24, that's it. Thank you. As we've been thinking through the landlord incentives, what we wanted to make sure is that we take a two-prong approach, that we provide have a breadth of incentives and also that incentives are equitable, for our landlords. And as we've been thinking through, and you may recall that the coalition had submitted policy recommendations to council that this lead safe certification be enforced in all parts of the city. That we wanted to make sure that we had the proper incentives in place to help to ensure compliance. We'll be looking at dividing landlord incentives into two pools, one of which that would be a first come first served pool of incentives that are across the city, and then a second targeted pool for landlords in hotspot zip codes and as we're working through our rollout of groupings. We really look forward to launching, the loans and grants portion in the fourth quarter, targeting October, and we look forward to working with you to get the word out to ensure that your constituents know about this and this effort and the availability of the capital.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That was extremely informative. I want to thank Mark, Kim, Chantel, Kevin, everybody who has really spent a lot of time on this. I saw Emily's on the call as well. I know that this involved a lot of partners, and it's greatly appreciated. At this point, I would like to begin with the sponsors and then go to questions for my colleagues. I'll begin with Councilman Brancatelli.
No questions.
Thanks, sir. Councilman Blaine Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had a couple of questions, and I want to make sure that I get this clear. Is the amount of the $5 million supposed to be paid back over 5 years or over 12 years? If you guys can point that out to me and help me understand that, I just want to make sure I get a clarification.
Okay, who can best answer this question of the presenters?
Mr. Chair, I think that would be me, Kevin Nowak.
Mhm.
So as we're looking at the loans and grants fund, there's really three components that we would be looking at here. One is grants, which are, and those are not dollars that would be repaid. Two is a loan loss reserve. So the loan loss reserve, it's important for the city as a government entity to provide that loan loss reserve, because what it allows for us to do is then to be able to raise the additional lending capital, from the private market. Our loan fund will be 10 years. And so, typically what we would like to see is a loan loss reserve and then a lending portion of the capital to match the remainder of the kind of term of the home, of the fund. So, our preference would be for it to be that term that would be 12 years, because that would allow for us the greatest flexibility, to support the lending capital, and to have the loans go out to the term that we need them to in order to best help the landlords.
So, yeah, if anybody else want to chime in that, because I think the legislation says 5 years, and I want to.
It will.
The agreement for 5 years.
Yeah, Council, it is
Entire
correct.
agreement.
Sorry, Council President, through the chairman to the councilman. Yes, the agreement, it is correct. It's supposed to be 5 years. So thank you for a point of clarification.
Okay, so we don't need, so it is correct. We're good.
Yes, that is the intent of the administration at this time.
Okay, thank you. The other thing that I had a question about is fundraising from other governmental entities. I know we got $2 million from the county, from the state for the biennial budget this past couple of years. Are we looking at reing up with that? And then has there been discussions with the county, and what can we do to try to nudge the county to be a part of this, because I don't see them as part of this funding stream?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, thank you so much for asking the question. We are intending to, and in fact are currently working with our friends at the state government on re-upping. As you know, that process starts to take place next year. And we're in very close contact with our friends and our champions in the state assembly on the status of the program, on spending down those funds, and on re-upping. In regard to the county, we've had discussions with the administration. I'll be blunt and to say that we've not received a commitment yet from the administration. So we are in conversations directly with county council, having had a very productive conversation a while back with Council President Brady, and are having a group discussion that I believe is scheduled for in the near future with other leadership, including Councilman Jones, who heads up that appropriate committee, as you remember. And any, again, I don't, to be blunt, any support that we can get in that effort and those discussions with county council would be most appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. President, I hope that we can find a way to really communicate. I know you talk with President Brady quite often, and I talk with Councilwoman Conwell, as well as a couple of other of our peers, but we really need to see what kind of commitment the county is going to give to this. So I really advise if we could really reach out to the county to start to, let them know that we really need their support on this. So hopefully we can get that. Thank you. 5 years goes fast. How are we going to look at sustainability regarding this? Because right now we're talking about lead safe. We have a $100 million budget over 5 years. You guys have done a great job. of raising at least over a fifth of that budget already. But 5 years goes fast. How are we looking at sustainability in the long term so that we don't run into what we have in past years where the enthusiasm is there now, but then in the future, there's not a sustainable funding process? How are we starting to look at that?
If I may, again, this is Mark McDermott, Mr. Chair, to the councilman. We have a strong commitment from a good part of our foundation community who have already made either multi-year commitments or who are have expressed their willingness to make multi-year commitments to the fund. We have, with the leadership of United Way, who's made itself a multi-year commitment, have discussions going on in the corporate community around additional multi-year funding commitments for this. We have two on the investment side for our loan dollars that CHM would administer. We have three pending multi-year commitments, 5-year commitments that we expect will come in, if not before Labor Day, certainly by mid-September. That won't solve the entire 99 million, but it'll get us much further down the road. And we are continuing with we're continuing on the fundraising road with anybody else we can possibly think of and be working with. I should say, Mr. Chair, to the councilman, we also are working hard on the bank side. We don't have explicit commitments yet. We also expect to receive at least one, if not three, of those commitments by before the end of September, if not maybe perhaps early October.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, to Mr. McDermott, that's great. I just hope that we really put the press on the banks with CRA agreements. We know that plenty of the homes in the city of Cleveland are not worth more than $50,000, which creates a problem with lending for repairs and other things. So hopefully we will look closely at the CRA agreements with the banks to make sure that they're contributing or that they're helping be a part of the solution with this, as well as some of the corporate groups who we've been very friendly with over the years in order to try to help them with their business, and they've been beneficial with Cleveland, but we need their support in this as well. The other thing that I just want to ask Mr. Chairman is outreach. It seems we need to make sure we start educating people now. March 2021 is right around the corner. And I believe the first two areas Director Donald said she's going to is 44120 and 44102. I might be mistaken, but it's those two. And how are we really starting to ramp up outreach in those areas now so that landlords and also renters know that every household needs to be touched now so that we can really push that effort?
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, we are putting our strategies together. We've mapped out the whole city of Cleveland. We want to really make sure this is coordinated with the communications and marketing, right? So our plan is to get our folks out there in September with the right type of information they need so that they can start the process of talking to folks, getting out, and really reaching the community, as well as the smaller landlords that we know are in the neighborhoods. So we're putting a plan together now. I mean, our team wants to get out and jump out there, but we want to really be considerate to the full plan. And so they are fully supported with the communication strategy so that folks can identify them with the logo, with the information and with the posters. So we don't have, issues of people asking, well, who are you? Where do you come from? We want to have a full-on strategy. So that is being worked on right now, and they're coming up with messaging and all that. So we should be out in September in the communities, and they started some of that already, but we're trying to be really careful about our approach.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we really need to make sure that I believe that it's probably 4 council people in 44120, myself, Councilman Ken Johnson, Councilman Bishop, and I believe part of Councilman Jones' area, and it may even be another council person in there somewhere. But we really need to work closely with you to do the outreach on that now, because 2021 is right upon us, so we want to make sure we outreach. Two more things, Mr. President, then I'll close my comments. One is the lead safe auditor for Dr. Fisher. How are we going to monitor, because this is housing stability. This is really what we're trying to do is stabilize housing in the city of Cleveland so children could have a safe, lead safe place to stay. But how does demolition, rehab, and other ways that reduce lead exposure in our community, is your office going to help monitor that as well to try to help us understand how our housing stock is becoming more healthy because of this lead safe certification?
Yes, thank you, Councilman, and to the councilman through the chair. The lead safe, I would state that the lead safe auditor role is focused on what happens with the properties and the landlords primarily, and some attention to the children in those properties. I do want the council to be aware that our foundation partners have also put up about $100,000 to build out an evaluation plan that includes looking at the outreach and the work done by CHN and Environmental Health Watch. So between the lead safe auditor role and the additional funding, we think we have a pretty comprehensive package of strategies to evaluate not just what's happened with the rollout, but what has been the ultimate impact in the neighborhoods and for children. And so to answer your question, we have created over the last year a baseline assessment of what is true in the neighborhoods, the status of the properties, the ownership, what the landlords look like. And we will be able to use that as a reference point going forward to see how the local kind of complexion of ownership and street level realities of the properties has changed as these sorts of decisions have been made. We understand that there are multiple players here, and we need to have a way of understanding what property owners decide to do in response to the system, what changes in the properties themselves, and we're trying to have a strategy that allows us to do that.
And
so that's great. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just very briefly, because also keep in mind that that was through the council, the chairman to the councilman, that why we included or advocated for Dr. Fisher and his team to be a part of this, because as far as the lead safe auditor contract, it is fairly narrow in scope as we're paying, right? We're contracting, so there are only so many things that we are contracting for him to track and monitor as part of that process. However, his team is tracking so many other things, and as he mentioned, has other funding partners, funding sources, and working as part of the Lead Safe Coalition. So there will be a plethora of things that are tracked and monitored, but a subset of those of which that we are paying for as the city and contracting with him to do.
That's great, because if I'm hearing this correctly, through this partnership, we'll also get a pretty thorough evaluation of our housing stock, which I know will make some of my colleagues happy to really try to get that examination as we move forward. The last question, Mr. Chair, and I'll close with my remarks, is the universal testing. I know that a lot of people, and that's been a big debate amongst a lot of the medical professionals, but as the testing commission comes together, how are we going to know our numbers have dropped if we don't do universal testing? Or how are we going to be able to measure, as Dr. Fisher says, the effect and the impact of this ordinance on the children in the households if we don't really push for universal testing? In other words, if we don't have a baseline, how are we going to tell that we've actually gotten better or worse? Or staying the same. And I know that brighter researchers than me probably can give me the combination for that, but I'm really interested in how that factors into it, because I know I've been told by some, don't worry about universal testing, but I still believe that every child should be tested at least 3 times before the age of 18. But Dr. Fisher or anybody who would like to chime in on that. And I'll close, Mr. Chairman, after this remark by saying thank you to this coalition. I have stayed involved. I encourage my colleagues to stay involved. Kim and those guys are doing phenomenal work. I spent a lot of time over there with them. And I really encourage that everybody go and visit the Environmental Health Watch as well as the CHN. But to my remarks and to my question, Mr. President, how are we going to do this without universal testing?
Anybody have an answer? If not, if we can.
Okay,
Well,
I'll table the question. Oh, okay, go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
We need to review.
I'll take a stab, but I know we have the coalition established a testing committee specifically to drive home the importance of what the councilman is saying about better surveillance of lead in children. I think what we know is that about 15% of children get to kindergarten without ever having been tested. But as the councilman suggests, one test in childhood is not nearly enough because fluidity of situations, renters changing locations, different exposures for children can crop up at any moment. So that's why Medicaid covered children are expected to at least be tested around age 1 and age 2, and we're not anywhere near performance on that metric. So I think it has to be hammered on. I do want to say that, as you know, from the auditor role, it's likely with more successful testing, we're going to see these lead poisoning numbers go up in the short term, because we're going to determine that more children, in fact, have those exposures than we thought before. So success in testing leads to bad news on the numbers side, but it's the more correct number, which we want.
Mr. President, he sounds like our president of the United States. So
I would make a motion to Channel 20 to please strike that last remark, and my apologies to Dr. Fisher.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher. Thank you, Council President. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Bashir Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. President, I appreciate it. As I was looking at that list earlier, and looking at the people who have given, this is even, unfortunately, even the amount of money that we are able to raise for this is still, in most cases, a drop in the bucket from what has occurred through lead, man. As a person who, I had family members who've been affected by lead, and we look at in our community, if you look at the what, you're going to think that Black, brown, and poor white people are just animals. But if you look at the why, lead plays a major part in that why that we have to address. So I'm just hoping, as I looked at the list that was given, every bank, and I heard the gentleman say that they're still waiting on other banks to come on board. But when it comes to housing, I'm hoping that every bank in our city, don't just give $1 towards this effort, that they really put their support behind what has been brought to the table. This lead issue is not a small issue. And as Councilman Griffin talked about, testing children, I would, and maybe I'm very interested in seeing, and I don't know if this is even possible. I'm sure this is even outside of our gamut, but how many people who are in jail have been affected by lead? How many people are in jail? How many people who come in front of a judge have been tested positive with lead? This thing goes much beyond what many of us can ever imagine. So I'm really excited about what this group is doing. It's really beautiful work. And I'm really excited to see that the city invested what it invested. And what I'm hoping, Mr. President, is I'm sure this is something that's being pushed, that every organization has to show us and show the people. But that's what it's all about. It's all about the people. To show the people that, hey, we're not just taking, but we're willing to give. So, Huntington that 40,000, that must just be the first installment from Huntington Bank. I'm sure there's a couple more installments coming. But we want to see big investments coming from these places to deal with this very serious issue. So to Chairman Griffin, to Mr. President Kelly, this is great work, man. And I look forward to seeing this group with Fred Ward and Kim over there. It's going to be some great job. Those people know how to get out into the community. They're trusted, they're respected, and people, and this is not just the East Side problem, by the way. There's issues of lead on the West Side as well. And I'm just happy to see that this is moving forward and has moved forward. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
This is to Kim. Matter of fact, you're a great activist, and I'm a fan of yours. When you're ready to do, I want to meet with you within a week or two. I'll call you on your private number to see when you're going to start executing in the Glenville neighborhood. You know, I have people that will put boots on the ground when we go door to door to talk with the residents that's in my community. And I don't care if you guys are going to execute in January, February, whatever the case may be. I'll be out there with the coalition. And so you got that from me. I just need to know the way you're going to do it so we don't step on each other's toes. You know, I think about this every single day. For example, Kim, my group is going out tonight, and we're going to do it for 2 weeks. I mentioned to you, Mr. President, we're going to make sure children have internet and have a computer, and we'll find out what resources they have dealing with CMSD. And I need to do this also for the lead piece. It means a lot to me to show leadership, and they have to see me out there. So I'm open. You hear me? I'll do January, December, February. I don't care about the cold weather. It's about helping our residents and have to show leadership. So I yield to you, Kim. I want to hear from you.
Thank you to the councilman through the chair. The structure we created, we have 3 coordinators, East, West, and South Side, so that the coordinator's job is to meet with the council folks, understand institutions in the community. We are building relationships, right? It's not just about transactions for our team. So we create a structure so that the coordinators will make sure that they are respecting who's in the community. And our organizers are also building more impacted residents or concerned citizens into our planning, so that it doesn't just stop with the folks we brought into the resource center, but we'll also engage additional residents who care about the issue, who are impacted, and actually take them through policy and advocacy, and then they can join us, volunteer with us, help us get out into the communities and make sure that we're connecting with folks who are also trusted in their own neighborhoods. So the process, you know, it's a heavy lift, but the folks that we brought on live in the communities, they understand, they have relationships, and some with you already, right? So we know that they already have relationships with you, and we just want to leverage and build on that. And then we definitely have a plan to meet with council before we start, you know, doing anything on the ground. So that's already part of our planning process to come and talk.
Well, I don't want to put, sometime when you say meet with council, you're putting constraints. You got to wait to meet with me. Just let me know a week or 2 ahead of time. You and I will meet. I'll have people too, and we put boots on the ground and we execute. That's number 1. Number 2, what are some of the, because being that COVID is there, it's hard when you knock on doors. The residents aren't opening doors. Now they'll open the door for maybe Ken Johnson or Barsha Jones in his ward, but they're not opening their doors for anybody, for other people that they don't know. They're in their houses buckled down. So what do you need from me? What kind of resources? I mean, I'll be there every day if you need me to be there every day to push, to execute, because this is important. So what do you think you need? Like resources?
To the councilman through the chair, right now with the organizing team, we are starting to brainstorm because they have ideas too about how they want to engage in the neighborhoods. So I think we could come together, present those ideas, and we can talk through that and look at what's feasible. But we know that action has to happen. But we want to also incorporate their ideas because it's their neighborhoods too. So.
Well, my community love you, Kim. Matter of fact, in early March, they gave you, they have an award. It's just sitting in my house that we can't meet. So I need to give it to you. You just tell me when to give it to you because you were working in the neighborhood before on the ground and you helped out a lot of people already. So they're like, Councilman, have you given her the award? Have you given an award? I said, we talked by phone, but I haven't seen you yet, you know. But they want to give you that award. We want to help, number 2. And number 3, we know the importance of it. So any glitches or anything like that, you text me and so that we can move forward. That means a lot. The outcome measures, the goals are good and the objectives are good, but the outcome measures mean a lot, helping out with these children. And anything I can do, even if we got to walk in January or February, it's all about saving our children. I mean, I'm there. Like tonight, I'm walking. For 2 weeks, I got to do that with the schools, and I walk with you. You're on my to-do list for that. I'm going to yield to some other council members. What I'll do, I'll call you. I'll call you, if not tonight, I'll call you on your cell phone tomorrow, and we'll get you the award, as well as you'll tell me what resources you might need. Equipment, supplies, money, or people. 4 things: equipment, supplies, money, or people, so that I can help out. We'll talk. You're great. You do great work. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Councilman. We have a couple more speakers. It's 11:19 on my clock, and we still have a fairly healthy agenda. So if we can kind of hit our points best we can. Councilman Kerry McCormick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And thanks to everyone on council and on the committee for all your work on this. It's exciting to see this process advance as we, from the very beginning till now, and for some of these critically important parts like the financial assistance and products to becoming a reality. So I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, I would just say that as we've seen throughout the city of Cleveland, and Councilman Jones touched on it, whether it is, education or incarceration or other communal effects in Cleveland, I share his question about how many of our issues can be tied to this lead paint poisoning, unfortunately. So to me, Mr. Chair, the urgency to move and continue the momentum is critically important for not only the children most acutely and the families that are affected by lead paint poisoning, but education, jobs, economic development, reducing incarceration, all these critically important issues rely that we stay steadfast on this mission. Chair, I guess whoever could answer this, I've got just one question. I apologize if this was already asked. Do we have a rough timeline for release, whether it be grants, loans, et cetera, available for the landlords and or contractors? Do we have a timeline on when those will be live on the street?
Does anybody have that timeline available?
That's a Kevin question, I think.
Yeah, I can say, Mr. Chair, the councilman, both councilmen, and I'll let Kevin speak, but in general, in terms of all the money we're raising, we are really looking to have dollars available later in the fourth quarter, realizing that the rollout starts in March, to make sure that we have dollars available and ready to go.
So fourth quarter of 2020.
Sorry, that's correct, Mr. Chair of the council.
Great. Wonderful. Time is just kind of a weird thing nowadays. Anyways, Mr. Chairman, the rest of my questions were already asked, so thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. We had one final comment by Councilman Tony Brancatelli.
Thank you. Just as a correction, the rollout doesn't start in March. The law takes effect in March. The rollout can be as soon as we have funds available and we can give people help. This is just a lot of great information, a lot of really hard work that's been done. And what I might suggest, if the Chairman Griffin agrees, that we have an updated hearing in September, as Kim and others have talked about, that there'll be a lot of staffing done. There'll be quite a bit more additional work done. And I would suggest that we do this not through a committee as a whole, but as a standalone committee or a joint committee between health and development planning and sustainability. This could be a forum at a college campus. I mean, there's a lot of amazing, groundbreaking work here that can be replicated in other cities. So if we can look at it in a few months to have an update, you know, some of the concerns we see, you know, I've already seen landlords walking away from properties after they've been placarded, but being able to get them help and being able to figure out how we save our housing stock and provide really safe housing for our young children is critically important. And I know that March date's coming up on us fast, but if we have an update in September, you know, if we need to look at moving that date or looking at upgrading this since we've been in this COVID, we can look at that harder at a separate hearing and a separate forum. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and I would support that as well. I think today was just a great amount of great information. Unfortunately, I didn't get it, and I was seeing it on the screen today. I was able to take enough where I feel comfortable moving forward, but I definitely would like to spend more time digging through and like really looking at all the work that the Lead Safe Coalition has done, because it's really tremendous work and it's great information. So I would support having a follow-up standalone hearing sometime in September to really, you know, make sure that we are to really dig through all that great information and make sure everybody understands exactly what's happening.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
I agree that we have a joint hearing. I think this is a lot of information. I'm even willing, if Councilman Brancatelli is willing, to try to do it out in the community, that we actually try to find ways to really reach out to the landlords and to the tenants and really make sure that we over communicate with people on this, because I want people to realize the value in this. I will say that you know, there's been a lot of discussion, and I did take consideration from the landlords as well as others around, you know, possibly postponing this because of COVID-19 and other things. And right now we just got momentum, we got staffing. It would throw a lot of the systems off if we moved off of the March 2021 start date or implementation date. But I do agree with Councilman Brancatelli that we need to make sure that we go out to the community, especially to the landlords and others, to really make sure we over communicate. So I'm willing to do a joint committee with him to address that, okay?
On that point, Mr. President.
Very briefly, please.
Yeah, so I've been meeting with a group of landlords as well. So I guess my question would be, this hearing that could possibly happen, because we want to make sure that we're taking care of the residents, but there's also landlords who we want to make sure is in the right situation and don't get bombarded. So are we able to, Chairman Griffin, is that what you're saying, to maybe do a hearing or some type of meeting with these landlords to make sure that they're good?
I'm saying, Mr. Chair, to Councilman Jones, that I'm willing to do a joint hearing with community development. And yes, we should make sure that we have landlords to really hear their perspective and continue to engage them. I am fervently committed to the March 2021 implementation date.
Let's not talk about that issue right now. A hearing, yes. We'll deal with it
from there. All right.
If there's nothing further, I want to sincerely thank all of our guests for all of the work that you've done. Mark, Rob Fisher, Kim, Chantel, Kevin, Emily, Augie. I saw Mitchell Bulk as well. I don't know if he's still on the call. I think everybody's just really done tremendous work. It is very much appreciated by this council. It's very much appreciated by your city. Please keep up everything you're doing, and looking forward to continuing to, you know, learn and be a part of this process. With that, ordinance number 597, 2020 as amended stands approved. Thank you all very much.
Council President?
Yes.
I've been instructed. I just want to know that, acknowledge that there was an amendment to this, and that previously, and it's in section 4, line 2, to strike RLA and insert instead RL.
That is correct. The amendment says in section 4, line 2, strike quote RLA and insert RL. Any questions on the amendment? Thank you.
Question. Move approval.
Okay, if there's nothing further, ordinance number 597, 2020 as amended stands approved. Thank you all very much. At this point, we had discussed earlier the request to walk on ordinance number 545, 2020. And nobody has texted me or indicated any objection to that. So with that, I will, before I read it, I will note that this has been introduced. It has been heard by planning. It has been passed by planning. And it is, we just got it late and we didn't get on the calendar. Councilman Zone asked that we walk it on, and I'm going to read it. And I know Commissioner DeRosa is here to comment on it. Ordinance number 545, 2020, council members Zone, Johnson, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Purchase and Supplies to sell city-owned property no longer needed for public use and located along West 73rd Street to Battery Park North LLC or its designee for redevelopment, and authorizing the acquisition of recording of certain easement interest from Battery Park North LLC for the public purpose of implementing a Battery Park neighborhood public improvement. Commissioner DeRosa, why don't we start, then I'll go to the sponsor, Councilman Zone.
Good morning, Council President. So this ordinance is to assist with the development of a 4-story apartment building at Battery Park. It'll be constructed by Avenue Partners on a 3.27 acre site. And it's just north of where the city is going to construct the new Battery Park Avenue extension. And it's in between West 70th Street and West 73rd Street. So back in 2015, we completed the West 73rd Street underpass project, which, you know, connects Battery Park with Edgewater Park. And through that, we had acquired some land for the roadway improvement project. And we actually ended up with a little bit of extra land that we didn't need for the roadway project. And so essentially the developer is seeking to acquire about 1,499 square feet of little strips of land along there to allow him to square off the property to make a better development site for the apartment complex. So then the flip side is this is currently a vacant parcel of land where the apartments will go in. And currently there is no sidewalk or tree lawn on that side of the street, 73rd Street, because it's fenced off industrial property. So the developer is going to build a standard 5-foot tree lawn and a 7-foot sidewalk at their expense. But in order for this to be public right of way, the city is going to acquire from them a standard highway easement across that area, which is about 243 square feet. So we had an appraisal done, and the net area that they're going to acquire from us is 1,256 square feet. And the appraised value of that land is $38,205. So essentially, like you said earlier, it's a land swap in the sense that we're buying some land from them, they're buying some land from us. The acreage or the square feet that they're buying from us is larger than what we're getting from them. And the cost is $38,205.
Thank you. So we will receive the 38,000 plus the easement rights that the city needs, and they will get the property they need to complete the development.
Correct, Councilman. Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Matt Zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to my colleagues. This is a critically important effort to finish off the next phase of this project. We held 2 large community meetings pre-COVID, one in November, one in February, and then we actually did a Zoom meeting in April. The community is really excited about this new roadway going in there. And as Commissioner DeRosa said, he did an excellent job explaining. It squares off the parcel and allows us to make sure that we have ADA compliancy and allowed to put a sidewalk next to the project. And I'd ask my colleagues to support this piece of legislation, and also thank my colleagues for allowing me to walk it on. If we didn't hear it today, it probably would have delayed the project upwards of 45 more days. And we were trying to get construction going while the weather's good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Brancatelli, do you have any questions, comments on 545, 2020?
No additional questions. It's an amazing development, and congratulations as this moves forward.
Right. Thank you. Councilman Ken Johnson, do you have any questions, comments on 545, 2020? I read lips a little bit. I think you said no.
No, I'm fine with it, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Are there any further questions on ordinance number 545, 2020? Hearing none, seeing no hands up, ordinance number 545, 2020 stands approved. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner. I'm going to move to port control now. Director Kennedy, I see you're with us.
Yes, sir. I'm live and I think my mic is working well.
All right. And I think we have 6 ordinances, all which have been heard and approved by Committee on Transportation prior to today. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, sir.
Great. Okay, I'm going to begin with ordinance number 471, 2020. Council members Kelly and Cleveland and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Port Control to exercise the first option to renew contract number CTLS 2018-018 with Aeromag 2000 CLE LLC for the lease of space in the North Cargo Facility Building for the operation of an aircraft de-icing support and vehicle maintenance facility at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. Director?
Council President, members of the committee and council, the airlines have formed a consortium to fulfill their requirement to de-ice their aircraft. Aeromag is that vendor that they have selected and to perform maintenance and repair to that. I'm getting some feedback. To repair that equipment and get prepared for the winter season. They lease the space in our North Cargo building for that. The rental rate is based on a recent survey that we do at $2.25 per square foot for over 20,000 square feet. They've been a good tenant. And as we prepare for the most upcoming winter season and de-icing, we ask for the council's approval on this.
Great, thank you. And this has, as I said, was heard and recommended for passage by Committee on Transportation. Councilman Cleveland, do you have anything further on ordinance number 471-20?
Mr. President, it was thoroughly heard and reviewed and passed out of transportation.
Great, thank you. Councilman Kevin Conwell, questions on ordinance number 471-2020?
Mr. President, I want to ask him a question before you leave. Presenting, not on this ordinance, but just open when you finish, okay?
If I can let's get through the legislation first, and then and then I'll allow a brief miscellaneous.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Any further questions on 471-20? Hearing none, ordinance number 471-2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 472-2020, council members Cleveland and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Port Control to exercise the first option to renew contract number CTLS 2018-013 with Flight Services Corporation for the lease of space in the passenger terminal at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport to support its ground handling operation for Allegiant Air. Director?
Council President, members of the council, the airlines, as we just talked about in the de-icing, they select various vendors to conduct above wing and below wing services for them. That's unloading cargo, cleaning aircraft, and so forth. Allegiant Air in Cleveland has selected AV Flight Services for that to provide their ground handling. They lease approximately 207 square feet underneath our Concourse A. The rate is reflected in our airline rates and charges that are evaluated and consulted with the airlines each year. So they pay the airline rate, and for this, we ask for your approval.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Cleveland, again, this was heard and recommended. Anything further on 472-2020?
No, nothing further, Mr. President.
Any further questions on 472-2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 472-2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 473-2020, council members Cleveland and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Port Control to exercise the first option to renew contract number CTLS 2018-019 with Wide World Flight Services, Inc. for the lease of space in the South Cargo Facility Building at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport for the operation of an air cargo facility. Director?
Council President, members of the council, just as we talked about AvFlight earlier, airlines again contract out certain services Worldwide Flight Services provides cargo service for various airlines at Cleveland Hopkins. And the South Cargo facility is that combined facility that they use for those carriers. It's an independent third-party appraisal. It's based on that, and we're about to do that. So it'll go to that rate, and it's approximately 3,680 square feet in our South Cargo facility that they perform this function for the carriers. For this, we ask for the council's approval.
Great, thank you. Councilman Cleveland, we're good here? Thank you. Further questions, comments on 473, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 473, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 474, 2020, council members Cleveland and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the method of making the public improvement of repairing, maintaining, and installing concrete on runways, taxiways, ramps, roadways, and other services for the various divisions of Port Control, and authorizing Director of Port Control to enter into one or more public improvement requirement contracts for the making of the improvement for a period of 2 years, with 2 one-year options to renew, the first of which shall require additional legislative authority. Director?
Council President, members of council, we're seeking permission to go out with a public improvement solicitation. We are required by FAA rules to maintain certain types of concrete pavement at the airport and our runways, taxiways, ramp areas. And in addition, besides providing that service, whatever companies are selected will also help us with our roadways and other concrete needs at the airport. So we asked to go out for this. It's approximately $650,000 for 2 years. So for this, we seek your approval.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman? Good?
Sorry, yes, we're good.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, to the director through the chair, is there a MBE SBE goal on this contract that's being going out for bid?
Director?
Through the council president to the councilman, we follow all the city of Cleveland procurement, OEO, OCI, everyone will review it for the goals, and I would certainly hope so, because that's the normal course of action for us in our contracts.
Okay, great. I just wanted to be clear that that is part of business as usual, to ensure that there is some participation in when it's put out, that is sought after. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Anything further on 474, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 474, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 551, 2020, Councilmembers Cleveland and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Port Control to exercise the first option to renew contract number LS 2018-23 with Southwest Airline Company to lease cargo space at building number 216 at the South Cargo facility of Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. Director?
Council President, members of the council, we talked earlier about Worldwide Flight Services providing cargo services for multiple airlines at the facility at the South Cargo facility. Southwest provides cargo services for their own airline. They've been a long time good partner here in Cleveland. As we struggle through COVID-19, the passenger numbers are our flights are increasingly impacted. However, cargo seems to be remaining steady overall throughout the airport. So this is 6,400 square feet for their cargo operation. The rate is always determined on an independent third-party appraisal. And for this, we ask that you approve this lease with Southwest Airlines.
Great. Thank you, Director. Councilman Cleveland, this was heard and reviewed in your committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it was.
Fully supportive?
Yes.
Thank you. Questions, comments on ordinance number 511, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 511, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 536, 2020, Councilmembers Cleveland and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorized Director of Port Control to exercise the first option to renew contract number CTLS 2022-0004 with the Cleveland National Air Show, Inc. for the lease of space of office space, airfield, and airport facilities at Cleveland Burke Lakefront Airport to conduct an air show and related events. Director?
Council President, members of council, the Cleveland National Air Show has been a marquee tenant and partner at Burke Lakefront Airport in the city of Cleveland for years. This year's event is canceled. However, they still maintain 1,700 square feet of office space, and we're all hoping that the air show returns next year. The appraisal is third-party independent fair market value appraisal at $17 per square foot. The facility is about 1,500 square foot, and we ask that we are permitted to do the first option to renew this contract. For this, we seek your approval.
Thank you. Director, we're hoping that next year the air show returns in its normal form.
Absolutely. From your lips to God's ears, Council President.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Cleveland?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, yes, this was heard and reviewed at Transportation, and we as well look forward to the air show next year, 2021.
Thank you. Further questions, comments on ordinance number 536, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 536, 2020 stands approved. At this point, Councilman Conwell had a question. If it's too in-depth, we may have to ask you to take it offline, but Councilman, the floor is yours for a miscellaneous question to the director, and then Councilman Jones.
Mr. President, Councilmember Joe Jones requested a list of African Americans that's in the airport management. I never ever received that list, but I want management. Don't give me workers. Don't give me people that's scrubbing the floors or whatever. I mean, they need to be there too, because we need blue collar workers, white collar workers, engineers, the whole 9 yards. I need to see how many African Americans are in management and how many African Americans have you cultivated to become, let's say, in leadership positions, through the chair to Director Kennedy.
Director, you can provide?
Through the president to the council person, absolutely. We'll get that list to you right away. In fact, as we've gone through the COVID experience here recently, a number of positions have been needed to be moved around, but I can tell you one bright spot significantly is Herlinda Bradley that we're cultivating for future leadership. She's taken on more responsibilities. We'll have others too as we expand that cultivation beyond just Cleveland with people at Dallas and other airports to help to bring out that knowledge. But we'll have by noon tomorrow for you, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't remember the request from the Councilman Jones, but we'll get that.
Yeah, I'll write it down. I'll write everything down.
I'm sorry, Councilman.
Thank you. Councilwoman Cleveland, you wanted to comment on this?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we did receive that information from the director's staff, and that it should have been emailed to all council members after Councilman Jones' request. So, but I understand the councilman is asking for additional specificities, and so that's fine. But that information was received and it was sent out to the council members.
Great. Thank you.
Councilwoman, through the chair, sometime when you ask directors about African Americans or cultivating African Americans, you'll show the other workers, frontline workers. I mean, people who we have management training that we're putting in management positions, and that means a lot to me. And it's making decisions.
Yeah, the council. Yeah, I understand, and I'm just letting everyone know that the information was received and sent out.
Okay.
And we'll get the additional information to the councilman.
Yeah. Let me have that. Management.
Yes.
Management, directors.
Not clear, Councilman.
Operation managers, all those kind of things. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Bashir Jones, did you have a comment on this?
Not specifically on that, but I do want to say, we have to be more unified, man. We really do. I need to get those numbers too. So if it has been sent out, I haven't gotten it either. So I would like to get that. Secondly, Mr. President, I've been having, just on the miscellaneous, I've been having a lot of issues within the ward in regards to projects that's been in my ward that's going like, and I understand with COVID, but it's going like, you know, sloth molasses slower than usual. In regards to parks in my ward, for one example, I have a group named Signet. They gave the city last year $1 million check to build a park, $1 million. And it still hasn't even been sent to bid yet. It'll be sent to bid September 2nd, but they gave the city $1 million last year. And this was prior to COVID. And it's not done. So now my issue, Mr. President, and I'll be very brief, is that now people can lean on the fact that COVID is here, but COVID just exposed an already slow process. And what I'm asking for is that we really need to get, I can't just continue to get emails just saying, well, it'll be done. And there's no specifications. It's absolutely horrendous. And I don't know if my colleagues are going through this, but I'm going through it tremendously. I have a park that Signet gave $1 million, $1 million check, was a part of the community benefits agreement. They gave the city $1 million, so they didn't need to give them any money. They didn't need any money. All they needed to do was send out the bid and get the work going. And it still hasn't been going. And now they're telling me that the bid is in September and the work won't start until next year in March. So now I have this 160 unit building of primarily Case Western Reserve students who are not going to be able to travel through the jungle and back of this building to get safely to school and back. This is just one example of many, Mr. President, that things are moving molasses slow, and it's causing more problems. And then with the easier part is to say that COVID is the reason. I need some help, Mr. President.
Okay, so it seems that most of your issues would be with capital projects, and I'm aware of the project that you're speaking of, and I don't want to get too deep into any one project. I want to get through Director Kennedy first, but I thought bids were due back on September 2nd.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said miscellaneous. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just for the director, but we hear you. I hear you loud and clear. I have all of your emails, and I've spoken with them, but we'll take that offline. I am actually going to talk to them before I leave City Hall today.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Joe Jones, did you have miscellaneous, a very brief miscellaneous for Director Kennedy? Otherwise, we can, he does that. We can always just call the director. You should probably hit that mute button.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to ask for the request for the same information as relates to the contracts and minorities having the opportunity to participate in these programs. And I know that I've been in communications with the director at the table, and I also have talked to the director after meetings concerning my concern for minority participation at the airport. So whatever those the information, I'm quite sure the distinguished lady, Miss Phyllis Cleveland, has sent the info out. I just don't have it, and I've searched and I couldn't find it. So if you could resend it to me, I would be appreciative, Mr. President, and I have no other unreadiness.
Great, thank you so much. Director Kennedy, thank you very much. Please get that information back to council as soon as reasonably possible.
Yes, sir, and thank you to the council.
Thank you very much. Going to move now to two council pieces. The first is Resolution 553-2020, Councilmember Conwell. An emergency resolution urging the Cleveland Metropolitan School District to make mandatory in its curriculum African-American history and Cleveland-centered African-American history, and further urging the district to create an African-American education center for children based on African-American heritage and history in Cleveland. Councilman Conwell.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You know, when I was in school, the only thing that was taught to me about African American history is that we were enslaved people, and they would talk about Martin Luther King. So when we start, and then everything else I learned about was European history over here, how great George Washington, or how great Thomas Edison. So I mainly learned about white history. But in the schools, it should be mandatory that we understand African American history, so we can know about Garrett Morgan, so that we can know about Lewis Latimer, so that we can know about a lot of our great history people, even including Carl Stokes, and scientists that we have. We have had a lot of engineers and scientists. And when African American children see success every day, they need to see success every day. Once they see that African Americans are dentists and lawyers and scientists and engineers, then they say, I want to do that. I want to become that. And then you'll see us thriving in that direction. But when you don't have us in there in our history books, we learn about American white man history, their history, but we don't learn about our history and the true history of the Moors and the African American people. And we need to know that, and that's very, very important. So I ask council to support me on this, as well as understanding Cleveland history, Jesse Owens, and Cleveland history, Langston Hughes that came through here, in Cleveland history, George Forbes and Carl Stokes. And if there wasn't a battle to make Carl Stokes the first African-American mayor, you would not have President Barack Obama, because that was the same system that we used to put in President Barack Obama. So our children, the African-American children, need to see that. And I would say this in my conclusion, and I ask City Council for support. Children need to see success every single day so that they know this is what I can become. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. And I'll just add that the councilman has reached out to the school district and had this conversation with Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and Councilman Conwell and I have had several history conversations, and he's on to how history is told. So I appreciate that. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. President. One question, maybe Councilman Johnson or Polensek would be able to answer this. For the history of this, would this be the first time that council has taken a stance on the curriculum of Cleveland Municipal School District?
Does anybody?
Mr. Chairman, it's not the first time. However, this request is more in depth than any of the other ones have been.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Anthony Hairston. Councilman, you still with us? Let me go to Councilman McCormick, then I'll come back to Councilman Hairston. Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I maybe the conversations that you've had and with Councilman Conwell, the district have answered this, but I'm just curious if we know if the district is reviewing its curriculum to ensure that not only we're talking about Black history in Black History Month, but that we're also ensuring that it's a part of everyday history in our education. So I didn't know if the district is reviewing that, looking at that. We know that sometimes the authors of history books many times write it from a certain perspective that doesn't include the contributions of African Americans through our country's history. So are we aware if the district is looking at that?
Councilman, do you know the answer to that question, Councilman Conwell?
Yes, well, they're looking to put together a curriculum to make it mandatory. What the district should do, and I'll have a conversation with Eric Gordon, is that they should purchase their books from African-American publishers and African-American writers also, so that we can have a better understanding of African-American history. Because if we go to the ones that we've been going to, they would teach let's say his story. So you'll learn his story and you won't learn our story. So it should be 365 days a year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I appreciate that. And so I look forward to those continued conversations about how we embed this in everyday education beyond just 1 month.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to the question that was posed to us, there has been times over the years that we have in the past, there has been questions raised, but I would take it even a further step. I don't think they're teaching history, period, in the schools like we need to have it taught. I'm reminded of a visit I made to Collinwood High School several years ago. Spoke to a class of 19 predominantly African-American students. In fact, they're all African-American students on a career day. And it happened to be shortly after the passing of the late Congressman Louis Stokes. Great man. And this it was like 3 or 4 days after his passing. And I asked them to the group who knew who Lou Stokes was. And I ever heard the name of Congressman Louis Stokes, and out of the group, only 2 students raised their hands. I was like mortified, quite frankly. I asked them about did they know who Stephanie Tubbs Jones was? And again, virtually no response. I happened to be there. The former councilman, Jeff Johnson, was with me at the same time because we were both Collinwood alumni. And as we walked out, we were just shaking our heads like, and I asked the teacher who was in charge of this class, don't they teach history in this building anymore? And his response was to me, Mr. Polensek, not like you had when you went here. I had civics, I had government. So I would take it a step further from what my honorable colleague, Councilman Conwell, said. I don't think they're getting history, period. They should be learning not only about the Black experience in this country, but the experience should be taught about the Holocaust, should be taught about the Great Migrations that came out of Europe. I can recall my late father-in-law, Irish, talking about how his family came here because of the Great Potato Famine. So, you know, what constitutes America today? There's this great fabric of cultures, of races, of religions, a long line of history that has created America. And these students today are not getting it. They're not getting it in the Cleveland Municipal School District. We all know it. Let's face it. I mean, let's face reality. So I would hope at some point there would be some discussions, greater discussions with them. I mean, I went to Collinwood. They didn't teach me I didn't hear about Slovenians or Italians, you know. That wasn't taught. I was hearing about England. I was hearing about other places that didn't relate to me. But the fact of the matter is that was the curriculum. So at the end of the day, we need to have real history in our buildings today. These students need to know the experiences that their families, their grandparents, their great grandparents went through. What created this great nation that we are in today? And so I support Councilman Conwell, and I would hope there'd be some additional dialogue to really look at the curriculum in general. I mean, as it pertains to our history, our culture, our society. It's lacking within CMSD. We all know it, and that has to change. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and my honorable colleagues.
Thank you, Councilman. Is Councilman Harrison back? Councilman Joe Jones?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I also support my colleague Conwell as well, and I really appreciate the words of the Dean of Council, Mike Polensek, as relates to just historical understanding of what has happened before. And what we're seeing now is this phenomenon where you have, and I'm quite sure it's always been a human phenomenon, from one generation to the next generation, you don't have that historical memory. So my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, one of the ways that we could work on doing that is not only just in how we teach our curriculum, but let's talk about erecting statues to Congressman Louis Stokes and Carl Stokes and their contributions to the city of Cleveland and their fight to make sure that we all had good housing and that we were not discriminated against. And that in itself teaches the next generation that, you know, just because you are here doesn't necessarily mean that struggle doesn't continue. It is a continuing struggle, and we can see it right now when we look at just various facets of our communities. Why is it that in African American communities that we continue to struggle with education and poor educational conditions and poor educational teachers delivering poor educational outcomes, and the future is poor for a lot of African Americans? And then when we just had this lead-based discussion, we talked about the need for the financial institutions in the city of Cleveland to contribute to that. This would significantly have a very positive impact on the quality of lives for not only the poor, but also minorities in the city of Cleveland. How so significant that is. And so, you know, I submit to you and to my colleagues that we should start erecting statues to those men and women that have made significant contributions to the upliftment of the city of Cleveland. And even though we have come a long way as a people, we still have a long, long way to go. So with that being said, I also just want to give kudos to my colleague, Brian Casey, as well. I have no further comments, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Conwell, did you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I did. Mr. President, when we legislated 2 weeks ago to encourage the school district to change the name from Patrick Carey to Stephanie Tubb Jones Leadership Academy, you know, let me say this about history. Stephanie grew up in the Glenville community. She lived on Austin. She lived there her whole life. Stephanie was a judge, a prosecutor, as well as a great congresswoman. So then little girls and little children will be able to see how she became successful, and then they would want to be like Stephanie. And I say that to say this also. In my community, well, you know, I was an activist and I pioneered the fatherhood movement. We have a lot of issues in the neighborhood where you see that some of us are going to jail, committing certain crimes because we don't get a chance to understand our history, where we came from. And once you understand the roots, where you came from, that you came from doctors and judges and scientists and engineers, even over in Africa, that we had civilizations in Africa, then you'll say to yourself, I want to be a dentist, or I want to be a lawyer or a scientist. But when we don't have that, nothing to grab onto, it hurts us. And then you'll see more of us, if we don't have that to grab on, our history, knowing where we came from, then the outcome measures will be what you see today. What you see today. So pushing this legislation, and I ask my colleagues to push it, we need to see that. We need to see that even with the Three Musketeers, it was an African-American man who narrated to put together the Three Musketeers. But a lot of us don't know that. With the blood bank that's going on, it was the African-American male, Dr. Williams. You know, with the traffic light, Garrett Morgan. It was us, and that's all universal around the world. And so then young people would say they want to be like, not like just Mike, but Garrett Morgan also. And then they'll start studying and we'll start thriving and moving in that direction. So therefore I say we need it. It's very, very important. And I have to lean on the school district to push it. You talking about Black Lives Matter, that's in the core of Black Lives Matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councilman Bashir Jones.
Thank you. Councilman Conwell, man, great job, brother. Great job. This is really good work, man. And, you know, ever since I got here, man, it's all about rectifying the past, man, and really bringing us to the future. But I really want for people to know that this is a process. Well, number one, we have to, as a body, have a closer connection to Cleveland School District. We have to look at creating, you know, an educational component because our city will always be, it would always be where it is if we don't have a strong school district. We have to have a strong school district. So I know at this point, and as I've been talking with President Kelly about this for a couple of years, it's kind of tough because, you know, we don't really provide funding to them, but we have to figure out a way to tie this together. And I want to say on top of that, not only should we be promoting Black history and kind of rectifying the past, but all across the city, there are Boricua heroes that needs to be uplifted. There are Irish heroes. There are Italian heroes, right? The zone's been doing great work for a long time, right? So this issue of young people not knowing the greatness of which they came is not just a Black issue. Young people are just not aware of what happened yesterday. They don't really care about it, all right? So this is not just something that affects Black and brown people, but I think that we have to, as a city, join the 21st century. And we have to begin to look at statues that are problematic, names of schools and names of streets that are problematic, right? If your hero was my enemy, that's not a good thing, right? If your hero who never, well, we're not going to go there. My point is that all across our city, there are great heroes from all cultures. You know, right now we're looking at in Ward 7, you know, we renamed the street Stanley Ng, right? One of the first Asian Americans here in Cleveland who played a big part in Asiatown, the creation of Asiatown, right? So there's heroes like that from all different cultures across the city that we should be open to highlighting, that we should rush to change names of schools of people who are problematic. So Councilman Conwell, great job, man. But as was said earlier, we need to learn the history of all cultures, man, the greatness of all people, so that we can respect each other a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Technical difficulties, so if you called on, I apologize. I just wanted to echo some of the sentiments of my colleagues, in particular, Councilman Conwell, both Joneses, and I'd like to be as a co-sponsor to this piece of our young people to know that we come from kings and queens. You know what I'm saying? And it's something that should not be only discussed in the month of February, one time a year, but all 12 months of the year. This should be discussed, and I wholeheartedly support and urge the school districts to implement this as part of their curriculum on a daily basis. And especially, this is a great time where everyone is learning from home virtually. They can help support ideas, can help create for how we can do things better as young people. And you can get that type of inspiration just by, you know, learning about some of the history. So I won't be long. I know we have a healthy agenda, but I wanted to just give my support of this and ask that that our colleagues really join in supporting Councilman Conwell and moving this forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilman. And I'll just note, because a couple of folks have asked, I can tell you are in the car, but you're a passenger. So you're not.
That's right. I am.
So
I am a passenger. Sorry.
Much appreciated. Okay, well, thank you very much for your comments on this. If there's nothing further, resolution 553-2020 stands approved. We're now going to go to resolution 605-2020 as amended. Councilmembers Kelly, Slife, Bashir, Jones, Griffin, Polensek, Zone, Bishop, Conwell, Cleveland, McCormick. An emergency resolution urging the General Assembly to immediately repeal House Bill 6, a $1 billion taxpayer bailout for two Ohio nuclear power plants of First Energy Corporation. This was amended, and everybody should have the amendments on your email. The main components of this, and we had a thorough hearing at Finance where it was approved out of Finance. The main components of this resolution are urging the repeal of House Bill 6 and giving authority for any investigation that anything that affects the interest of the city of Cleveland that may have come from any of the HB6 co-conspirators. We had very very great testimony and from Antilli and from sustainability about just how detrimental HB6 was to our renewable portfolio, what it meant to not just non-CPP customers, but all of the city of Cleveland. A similar, parallel but not exactly related to House Bill 6 is if you take a look at how LEEDCO has been affected by what happens in Columbus. We really need to, if we can get this repealed and get a second look, we need to be very involved in any subsequent bill as it relates to renewables and as it relates to our interest of the city of Cleveland. This is not a Columbus issue. This is a Cleveland issue. And as we all know, we discussed on Monday, there are, active organizations that are hostile to Cleveland Public Power and seeking to destabilize Cleveland Public Power. My questions are very simple. Who's funding these operations? And did any of the money come from one of the sources, one of those that are involved in the HB6 investigation, whether it's Generation Now, Company A, Company B, Company C, or any further company to be, that will come out of this. So with that, Rachel, did I capture the essence of what we're looking to do?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Because we had to amend the resolution for the authority. Councilman Medzone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My honorable colleagues, I want to create some context for the city's investment in this space for quite some time. Some of you may be aware who are on council at the time in 2008 when we adopted an advanced energy portfolio standard. And really what led us to work towards establishing this portfolio was after the August 2003 blackout. You might remember where half the country lost power and we were out of power for 3 days. Congress then amended what's called the Public Utility Regulatory Policy Act, also known as PURPA, and I'll refer to it as PURPA moving forward, which requires utilities to consider adopting certain standards to promote conservation of power, efficient use of resources by utilities. And so what we did is in 2006, I became the chairman of the Utility Committee. I did it from 2006 to 2009. And we held a series of hearings looking at how we could diversify our energy portfolio and bring more renewables into our utility. On August 29th, 2007, we held a large public hearing around our advanced portfolio standard. On December 6, 2007, I held a hearing as the chair of the Utility Committee at Cleveland Convention Center, where we had over 40 people publicly testify on their strong desire to see CPP move in this direction. And then in January 16th of 2018, we held another hearing, which ultimately ended up leading us to, in April of 2008, adopt Resolution 943-08, which established our advanced energy portfolio standard. It established that we had to have 15% renewable by 2015, 20 by 2020, and 25% by 2025. The actions of what HB6 has done has really thwarted our ability to advance our renewable energy portfolio standard. In fact, after we passed our ordinance in April of 2008, and I was jokingly kidding with Councilman Polensek, the dean who was on the committee at the time, we had a 7-hour committee hearing at City Hall. Very passionate people around this, but we ultimately moved the measure forward. And when we adopted our standard, 2 months later, just 2 months later, the state of Ohio, the same entity that put forth HB6 under the Strickland administration, put forth a renewable energy portfolio standard that passed 99-0 in the House. Bipartisan support. Every member of the House voted for it. 33-0 in the Senate. There was not one no vote establishing a renewable energy standard. And then when the Kasich administration came in, he started to roll back some of those standards. And then when this current administration, the DeWine administration, and particularly former Speaker Householder, really thwarted the state's ability, rolled back those standards, and really is stagnating a whole market that is ready to just explode in this space. So I applaud you, Mr. Chairman, for taking the bold effort to put this resolution forward, and I strongly support it and encourage my colleagues to vote for it as well.
Thank you, Councilman. I just want to, all the amendments, there's a lot of them, they're voluminous, and it's all on your, they've all been sent. I just want to reread the caption because I think it's important. Where you heard me read the caption, but urging General Assembly to immediately repeal House Bill 6. And then we struck the rest and said a ratepayer bailout of 2 failing nuclear power plants and authorize investigation of actions of those entities involved in House Bill 6 corruption probe as those actions relate to and impact the affairs of the city of Cleveland. So I think it's important that, we're not going to try to do what, I have no interest in doing what the FBI or others are doing. I just want to know how it affects Cleveland, how it affects Cleveland Public Power. That's all I have any interest in. And I think that the 3 main things we talked about Monday is A, understanding House Bill 6 and just how detrimental it was to us. Using this as kind of a rallying cry or wake-up call to double down and support our commitment to renewables and invest in this asset known as Cleveland Public Power. And then the third is to look into any groups that were part of this that are going to be named that may have had, may have been, seeking to destabilize Cleveland Public Power. Rachel, did you want to say something?
Yes, through the chair to the council, I just wanted to mention that the authority under the charter for the council to make investigations only goes to city affairs. Okay. So basically what you said is you are limited to that under the charter.
Just the city. Great, thank you. Councilman Mike Polensek. Unmute, please.
Unmute. Am I on? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I was going to confirm what Rachel said, because in the early 2000s, the council conducted an investigation of some great concerns that we had, and we used the subpoena powers then as well. But again, it can only be specifically for city-related matters. The thing I wanted, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Chairman, yourself and others who've been involved in this process. Obviously, Cleveland Public Power is very near to my community, near to me. We have the greater Collinwood community has the largest customer base of Cleveland Power customers. So we're greatly concerned about the condition and the attacks that have been waged. And I've been here long enough to realize I came into this body when there was a concerted effort to kill Cleveland Public Power, then Muni Light. They were not successful, the people, and that was the predecessor of First Energy. That was the illuminating company, as we refer to them. So there's been an effort for the last 40 plus years that I'm aware of. In fact, it started long before that to really kill this system, to do away with the competitiveness that we've always created in the region. But what I want to say this, and I support us trying to get to the bottom of whatever took place and the efforts that were underway to gut Cleveland Public Power and to make it put us in a difficult path. But I also think we have to be honest and frank. At Cleveland Public Power, there were some bad decisions made within the system. So we're going to really start drilling down. Let's really drill down, because I'm concerned about this system. I'm concerned about its viability. I'm concerned about the rates that our consumers today are paying in the city of Cleveland. There used to be a 33% differential between Cleveland Public Power and the illuminating company. That no longer exists. So I'm concerned about where we're at today, about bad decisions that were made, about misinformation that was provided to this council over the years. Because again, none of us, to my knowledge, are electrical engineers in this body. So we took what was told at the table And as a result, we went down a path that maybe we shouldn't have gone down in many areas because of recommendations that were made to the legislative body. So again, Mr. Chairman, I would just say this in all due respect. If we're going to really look at the attacks that have been lobbied and have been initiated against Cleveland Public Power, I hope we also look at its present day status. Our taxpayers and our consumers deserve that. They deserve to get a real snapshot in time as to the condition of this system as we move forward toward the end of this year into next year. So that's my comment. That's my concern. I'm greatly concerned about the viability of Cleveland Public Power. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my honorable colleagues.
Thank you, Councilman. Let me reiterate that I really believe that as we really look at House Bill 6, we have to look at it for that purpose. Kind of like a wake-up call to shore up this asset,
Yes.
to make sure the capital product is in good working order, make sure the operational component of it is in good, solid working order. So I agree, Councilman, and that's certainly something that's certainly be a part of what we do going forward. So thank you for your comments. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Mr. President, I want to echo you and Councilmember Mike Polensek. We should host a hearing because you have to look at lessons learned. I mean, when you hear about Cleveland Public Power, we need to look at our strength. And matter of fact, we could do a SWOT analysis on it, looking at the strength, the weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and the weaknesses of Cleveland Public Power. And we have to own up to that. We need to take a look at it and host a hearing. We need to look at their strategy reviews, and they also, and I know that they have every quarter they look at their strategic planning. When they come to the table, they don't bring these tools to us to see. I bet you they never ever bought a strategic plan where they're supposed to go or their vision dealing with CPP. I bet you, Mr. President, they never brought that to council. I bet you they never brought how they're evaluating their systems and what's going on with their budget. Yeah, I bet you they never brought that to city council. So we need to have them to bring it in so we can take a look at it. I echo you as well as Councilmember Mike Polensek. And that strategy review is very, very important because then we know which direction they're going in. And in the strategy review, you have their budget is in there as well. So we need to take a look at these things. We have oversight, Mr. President, and we should be evaluating not only CPP, the health department, all of that. It should be an evaluation process every 3 months. Look at, hey, you bring us your proposals, you're bringing us your projects. Let's see where you're at. Let's see where you're at. So not only CPP, but all of it should be evaluated on an ongoing basis. So I say this, I echo Councilmember Mike Polensek, as well as yourself. We're looking to that, but we do need to look at CPP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Joe Jones. Still with us, Councilman?
Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President, how are you?
Good.
Question. What we're proposing here is, so I can make sure I'm on the same page. We're proposing, are we looking to have a investigation? What is the process? Or are we looking to get information from the investigation on the state level? How does this all work? And how does it all break down?
Okay, two components. Resolution is going to urge repeal of House Bill 6. Second component is yes, to have an investigation of those actions that affect the city of Cleveland, as it relates to any of the HB6 co-conspirators or anybody that's named in the HB6 investigation. So essentially, just to, no mystery here. I just want to know, for anybody, any organization that was, just kind of out to attack or destabilize CPP, where did the money originate? And did that money originate and was it spent lawfully? That's all that's gonna be my two overarching concerns going forward.
Okay, and so once we find out if there's conspirators in this, then what happens?
we will look, we'll subpoena people. We'll try to find out, where the money originated. And we don't know everything yet. The investigation will lead to different steps that we need to find out. And I'll just, as we talked about Monday, there's certainly a good chance, or a chance, that this was just, distasteful dark money that's legal. And we don't know that, but that's what I want to find out.
Right. So because I think that Mike Polensek, he certainly stated it's been a long issue of us having our own power source here in the city of Cleveland. And I know that I was approached concerning this issue by a number of organizations that were asking. One organization asked about how many people did Cleveland Public Power serve, and were they going to cut their for all the utilities, actually, for the water utility as well as the electrical utility, were they going to add people back onto the electricity, add people back onto the water? And I've asked questions to the departments, and I still have not had my answers as an elected official responded to. And when anyone attacks us, Mr. President, if they're attacking us and they have a legitimate question of the attack, and it's something that's reasonable, something that as elected officials we should look into, and certainly in the situation of Cleveland Public Power, one of the things that I've been a fan of is it's being able to grow. And I've sat at the table and talked about why aren't we looking at new ways and means to grow as a company and make more money and resources. And I, quite frankly, I was, Mr. President, and to my colleagues who are listening, I was totally just blew off. It was as if, there is no expansion plan. There is no program. They're just flying by the seat of their pants, in a sense. And so, and if there is a plan, they certainly did not make a presentation of it. And I even went as far to talk about, new ways of, establishing your own electricity, starting your own plant, and looking at other models where those, Elon Musk, Australia is an example. What are we doing here? We are, historically speaking, we're one of the first cities in the United States of America to have its own power company. That's significant, and it means something, and we shouldn't just be sitting on our laurels. The other issue, Mr. President, that still has not been answered, and I asked this question back in 2018, I would like to know it, is this rate fee. Now, I got $136 that I got for a rate fee. Now, I've asked the question, what is that for? And I have still, at this time, Mr. President, have not received a response to that. And when I talked about it at the table, I was told, well, it's our attorneys are dealing with it, a legal challenge. Well, the legal challenge is over with. So why am I being charged this? So is this a rate increase? And the reason why I'm bringing this up, is because of the difference in the African American community. We're paying more for our electricity. So why is that? Because most of the people who are on Cleveland Public Power are African Americans. We believe, we support Cleveland Public Power, and we just want to know why we're getting this fee and why our rates are much higher than the competitor. And so at the end of the day, if we're going to be serious about changing the conditions and having a strong utility, the outside won't mean nothing if we're strong on the inside. Mm-hmm. And so if we have a system that has a plan and a growth plan and is structured correctly, who cares about First Energy or any of those folks? At the end of the day, we will have our own power, and we should be expanding and growing. We're right here on this beautiful, the greatest location in the nation, Lake Erie. Right here, we're in the dead smack of greatness, and we should be utilizing that water, and we should be expanding our services, and we should be reaching all of Cleveland, and not just all of Cleveland, but all of the region. So, Mr. President, I don't, and this is not to put anyone down as a commissioner or a director or anything. It's just a suggestion that I feel that we need to stretch a little bit more and we need to grow a little bit more. And so, whereas I understand the investigation of House Bill 6, many of us would like to know, but I also just want to caution too, that we have to start taking care of our own facility. If we want to go somewhere, all of us have to put the political will in play to make Cleveland Public Power the best. And
Right.
part of doing that is getting on top of who's running it. And as my colleague Mike Polensek says, unfortunately, some decisions that were made has put us in a place where we might not like to be. But there needs to be some accountability, Mr. President. And and then lastly, I am a Democrat. And so knowing that these are Republicans in the state house, I just quite frankly don't know if some of them will be, with their investigations, will be truthful with their investigations. We see what's happening on a national level. It's appalling how the Republicans have acted at that stage. I don't see any difference here in the state of Ohio. So I'm just, I'll be prayerful for this. But at the end of the day, we need to deal with these rates. And then I just caution that, let these investigators, whoever they are, do their work. If there's some wrongdoing here, I'm quite sure that the FBI and whoever else is engaged is going to get to the bottom of it. So with that, Mr. President, I just hasten that on our end, at least we can try to do the best we can for our power company. And I'm hoping and praying that they come up with some type of expansion plan, or we put someone who has the mental capacity to have a vision to see the future in a different way that so many others who've sat in that chair has not made those moves, and they have not put plans in place to put us on a good footing. So, Mr. President, I just, again, I want to ask the question, why are we charged this fee, and when can we get the answer to it?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your comments. I don't want to we will deal with, Cleveland Public Power shoring up this asset needs to be a value of this council. There's been a lot of misinformation that's been put out. I don't want to go over all of that right now. We will be digging into each allegation and where it came from. But that's all for another day. Right now, we just want to deal with this resolution going forward. But certainly Cleveland Public Power is a value to all of us, and we need to preserve this asset and strengthen it. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify some things that were commented on. One, the legality of Cleveland Public Power is not over. It was kicked back, by the Court of Appeals to the Cuyahoga County. So we're dealing with that issue. And two, there is a study that's being conducted, which probably will take 12 to 18 months about the whole facility of Cleveland Public Power. But in that meantime, before that study's done, I'm working with the administration to hold certain hearings regarding things that are going on over at Cleveland Public Power starting on September 1st, when we'll have a meeting dealing with the energy adjustment charge. So know going forward that we're working with the administration to hold hearings so that a lot of this nonsense and misinformation that's out there about Cleveland Public Power, we're going to get it all cleared up through hearings in the next couple of months. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No.
Thank you, Councilman. Anything further on Resolution 605, 2020 as amended? Yes. Councilman Bashir Jones.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this resolution, and plan to support it anytime that you have organizations or individuals that are doing the wrong things. It should be brought out. We didn't come to this office to abuse power. We didn't come to this office to be harmful to anyone. And those who get in this position and do that have to be answered to. And with those government agencies being involved, I'm sure that they're going to come to the answer that they are looking for. And this is the time, Councilman Zone, I'll take the rookie title real quick, because I'm just not, aware of certain things and how to do certain things. And I'm excited to learn about the processes of hearings and so forth and so on. And seeing that we have this ability to do it, there are some things that I believe along with this, that we have to have hearings for, and that I've been talking about, and that I'd like to just throw out there again. We have to have a hearing. One of the biggest, and I understand what some of the council members have said, but one of the biggest issues that I've heard from residents have been CPP. That has been some of the biggest issues. Along with that has been how we deal with water. It's been a big issue. Another thing has been this fight for public comment, right? Another thing has been how we dealing with the homeless population. So I'm just, the reason why I'm saying these things is that if we have the ability to have these hearings for something that we should be having hearings for, I would urge us to also look at the things that the people are being harmed by, and it's an everyday reality for them, and they need to see us holding ourselves accountable and holding the administration accountable. And if we are not doing that, then we're just having like a political tennis match of people who have power and who are just battling back and forth in whatever capacity they can. But the fact is that the everyday person, the everyday Clevelander on the east side or the west side are dealing with issues around water, dealing with issues around CPP, dealing with issues around not feeling a part of this city or not feeling as if their voice are being heard. So as we are having these hearings, Mr. President, and for my colleagues, there are some other hot topics that I'm hoping that we can also have hearings on as well, that will hold us accountable and also hold the very people that the residents have put into office to be held accountable. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Joe Jones, did you have a subsequent comment, or is your hand still up from before? Okay, could you unmute Councilman Jones, please? Joe, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, am I unmuted now? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, first I want to thank the new chairman of the Utilities Committee, Mr. Casey, for working with the administration to have a hearing concerning these issues, and to put to rest what he said, which is a lot of rumors. When I was a council person previously, I remember then Mayor Mike White, and I would ask questions at the table, and I never had a secondary group that gave me their information. It never went, if it went through John James or Joe Titron, it came to them for whatever reason, but the mayor always made sure that I got the information right, almost as if he had special people listening to the committee and then making sure that each of the elected officials had someone, had the information given to them. And they also had a council legislative liaison that met with me several times throughout the month. I've not had that since I've been back. And so when I ask for questions, I don't get them answered. And, 18 months is way too long. When a city elected official asks a question at the council table, he should get it or she should get it. It should not be an issue, Mr. President, for an elected official who represents 25,800 people in the city of Cleveland to ask a question why this rate increase and to be ignored. So I take issue with that. I take issue as an elected official that sits here at this table, ask an important question about an important subject matter and kind of get blown away. No response. And it wasn't the first time I asked for this answer. It was several times. So if there's organizations or institutions who have questions then it should be our capacity, our ability as elected officials to look in, see what's real, what's not real, identify the issues, answers, respond, because that is what we should be doing as elected officials. That's why we were elected in public office, to resolve, handle the issues, answer the questions the best of our ability. And here I am, from the day one in 2018 getting elected, I asked that question, and I still have not gotten that response yet. And so to tell me that I have to wait 18 months, 13 months from now, after the election, so it'd be 4 years, I get the answer, maybe 5 years. Are you kidding me?
So Councilman, it's getting on, I'd like to stick to the legislation in front of us.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I just want to answer the question. Why is it so difficult to answer that question? And just give it to me in writing. It's real simple. It's ABC 1, 2, 3. You mean to tell me we don't have anyone there that is capable to answer that question? And if that cannot be answered, then it challenges the capacity of the people who has the question.
Okay.
And then
we
really need
the resolution. We understand there's not anybody here that can answer that. I understand your frustration, but it's kind of outside of what we're talking about now. So I'd like to circle back to resolution.
The only reason why I asked that, Mr. Chairman, and I show the frustration, is because I'm paying a fee, and it's $136. I don't have to pay. It's $136 as of this month. And so all I'm saying, Mr. President, is you're about to lose me as a customer. I've asked the question, no answers to it, paid all these fees. And so then, the Cleveland Public Power is on the brink of losing customers based upon their charging a higher fee. And so as elected officials, it should be our responsibility to ask that question, get it resolved, get it taken care of, and then move forward. So there won't be any issue.
Councilman. Yeah, understood. But we're going to just stick to the resolution. With that, I want to go to Councilman Anthony Hairston on resolution 605, 2020.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to my colleagues as well. And just to some of the points that Councilman Polenzek touched on and Councilman Jones, that I really, within this, that we dig deep within ourselves, because a great deal of my residents are very concerned about CPP and what is going to happen. As he said, the Northeast side, in particular Ward 8 and 10, has a high number of users of CPP. And so many of them, and particularly the senior population, are greatly concerned about what is happening, what's going on, and what this body intends to do to be able to either stabilize or figure out some alternatives along the way to better put this utility on stable ground. Within the ordinance or the resolution itself, my question is, so I know there was a hearing on at the Finance Committee, and so there will be subsequent hearings? How is this? I'm not truly understanding how from this point this will go after passing this. I just wanted some clarification on that.
Sure. Subsequent to this will authorize the council to investigate whether any of the HB6 co-conspirators, whether there's any dark money or unlawful money that was filtered to any Cleveland Public Power, we'll call them attack groups.
Okay, so there will be, I get that point. So after there'll be subsequent hearings regarding those. Yeah. Okay, so Monday was not the only hearing that was going to be held, right?
No, it was just on the resolution itself.
Okay.
The resolution authorizes future hearings.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
I'll be real quick, Mr. President. I want to echo Councilmember Barsha Jones. He's definitely correct. And let me say this to Chairman Brian Casey. I am very, very interested when he hosts a hearing, because Mr. President, we do have to dig deep in their budget. And I know we want to stay on the resolution, but we have to look at CPP. You got to look at lessons learned. That's very, very important. You're a lawyer. You guys are very, very technical also. So we have to look at CPP. So I echo Councilmember Barsha Jones. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse on it. But I'm going to talk with you about it offline and other council members. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there is nothing further, if we could amend the legislation to add Councilman Casey as a co-sponsor, and if there's nothing further, resolution 605-2020 as amended stands approved. Thank you all very much. This concludes our legislative session. We will take a break. Don't sign off though, please. Please stay on this invitation, and we're going to begin the council meeting at 1 o'clock. So we take a 13-minute break, and we're going to come back at 1 o'clock for the council meeting.